5:30 p.m. and I will call to order the October 22, 2019 meeting of the MISD Board of Trustees. We will begin with a moment of silence followed by the pledge to the United States and Texas flags. But before doing so, I'd like to introduce the student who will be leading us in those pledges. That student is Midland High School senior Nolan Bloom. Nolan participates in the Stellar Explorers program and is a member of the Junior ROTC Marksmanship team. He has received the Silver Star Community Service with Excellence Award, as well as the Celebrate Freedom Foundation Award. Outside of the Junior ROTC, Nolan has a rigorous course load of AP Macro and Microeconomics, AP Calculus BC, AP US Government, Psychology, and AP Physics, and has maintained a GPA of 3.3 on a 4.0 scale. After graduating from high school, Nolan plans on attending a four-year university and has not yet decided on a course of study. But first, if you'll please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Cadet Bloom, thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Cadet Bloom, thank you very much, and we wish you the very best on your academic career going forward. All right, agenda item number 2 is presentations, recognitions, award announcements. 2A is the Texas Association of Secondary School Principal Recognitions. Mr. Horner, welcome.
Thank you, President Davis, board members, Superintendent Riddick, for allowing us to recognize these stellar administrators tonight. Each one of these three has been recognized by the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals. The Texas Association of Secondary School Principals is an association formed by and of more than 5,600 campus level administrators across the state. The first recipient I'd like to recognize is Lee High School Principal Stan Van Hooser. Mr. Van Hooser has been named Region 18's High School Principal of the Year by TASPE. He has served now, this makes his 4th year serving as principal at Lee High School. Our next recipient is Midland High Associate Principal Misty Ring. Ms. Ring was named Region 18 High School Assistant Principal of the Year. Ring previously served as Midland Lee Assistant Principal when she was selected for this nomination. She has served in Midland ISD now for 11 years. Our next recipient is Assistant Principal Lori McNichol. Ms. McNichol has been awarded the Middle School Assistant Principal of the Year for her work last year at Goddard Junior High. Ms. McNichol has served as Assistant Principal at Goddard for 11 years and now serves as Assistant Principal at Parker Elementary. We're very proud of these. Congratulations.
Thank you all principals, and thank you for all the service you provide our students every day. All right, next is agenda item number 3, public forum. We have 6 speakers signed up to address the board this evening. None of them have specified an agenda item, so They will have 3 minutes, and while we're permitted to ask questions, we can't engage in any dialogue or discussion with them, nor can the board among ourselves have a discussion about any of their topics. Notwithstanding that, I'll call the first. I think it's Eleanor Lawrence? Elena Lawrence. Topic, Parent-Teacher Liaison. Ms. Lawrence, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Elena Lawrence. I'm a former Midland ISD teacher and a Region 18 Elementary Teacher of the Year. I am here tonight as a Parent-Teacher Liaison. I speak for the teachers and the parents that y'all have silenced. The culture in this district is embarrassing, but it is not hopeless. Mr. Riddick, you have spent more time on campus sharing facts about a bond instead of inspiring, encouraging, and helping teachers, let alone meeting with parents to discuss the true issues plaguing our schools. Instead of making a name for MISD, y'all are making a name for yourself. You are not supporting our teachers. You are not engaging parents or preparing students. In fact, your mission statement leaves out a shared vision with your #1 focus group, which are your parents and teachers. You push a bond and say safety of students is the issue. Our students are not safe because of bullying in this school district. It is not a classroom management problem. Hold students accountable. Let children be children in the classroom. Let them explore. Let them be excited about learning. Let them sing, dance, draw, and move. Let them learn naturally and organically. Let teachers be teachers. Let them have mentors that are former educators. Bring fun and creativity into the classroom. You're stifling that from our students. They deserve better. Shame on you. Go back to the basics. Empower teachers and respect them and support them from the top up. From the top down. When you gave principals autonomy, you removed powers from the teachers. You've allowed abuses by principals to occur, and you've disconnected yourselves from those teachers. We can't dream about schools we could be in 25 years. We need to talk about the schools we can be today. This board has turned their backs on teachers, but not me. I am here to be their voice. I will advocate for them. I will expose abuses to them and violations. I will hold each of you accountable. You've created a dictatorship. The future of Midland schools and the failures currently are on your hands and on your watch. You say you want community involvement and engagement. I've reached out twice and been ignored. I will not be ignored anymore. You are elected officials. Do your jobs and let teachers do theirs. Stop destroying the passion for education our teachers have. Stop limiting us so you can push an agenda. Stop telling us we are incapable because of the age of our buildings. Harvard, Yale, and Cambridge would disagree with that statement. I promise, if you start with teacher morale, students will feel it. They will take big risks and we will see big rewards in tests. Then you will engage a strong community. So when you do ask them to dream bigger, they will stand next to you and proudly take those steps. I've been in that MISD, and I'm asking you to bring that MISD back. Your school board theory of action states every MISD staff member shall have a growth mindset and a no-excuse philosophy. I implore you to start with yourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lawrence. Next up is Merelda Juarez. Topic, bond input. Ms. Juarez, welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Mr. Riddick. My name is Esmeralda Juarez. I am an ESL student graduate from Midland High. I am a mother of 5. 2 already graduated kids from Midland High, 3 still going to MISD, elementary, junior high, and high school. I am an involved parent. My input on this bond is, I do believe we need a bond. I just would like for each one of you to get the community involved, not just on certain occasions, not just whenever it's better for you, but all the time. Do I have an issue with the rental and purchase? Yes. Do I understand the reasons y'all have given? I understand it. but still, that was not an input that was given to the community. I don't want anybody to feel like we're not supporting you guys. We are. We want to support the education of our kids, but we want transparency. We want to be able to, for y'all to hear our input. I've talked to teachers. I know several of them teachers, and I have a 23-year-old that was at MISD since he was 3 years old. I've been there at schools helping. So with that, I know teachers that are not for this bond and afraid to speak because of repercussions. That's not something that I like to hear. You know, I hear the people that are for this bond stating that those of us that are against the bond, it's because we don't care about our kids. It's because we don't care about the teachers. We do care. And like I've stated before, there's not one time that we are gonna wake up one day and say, you know what, I decided not to care about my kids. I want each one of you to represent your district, to hear them out, to have meetings with them. And even though if you approve this bond, or if you are for this bond, listen to the community and see what is that they're wanting you to do, because you were appointed there for your community. All I'm asking is for you to show us some respect. Do I want this bond to fail? This one, yes. Will I vote for another one that, even if it's the same amount, but has more transparency, that will involve the community, that will allow us to be involved? I've put in to volunteer in several committees, and I've received rejection emails. Why? I don't know why, but I think it would be a good idea to get different people involved in your committees, not just the people y'all know. You know, everybody needs to speak up. And am I saying that the people from the planning committee didn't do their job? I'm not saying that. I want to thank them for the time they put in, but I want a better bond, and I want you to please take the time to listen to each one of us. I'm not here to make y'all feel like y'all are dictating on us, but that's the way it feels to us, to the community. Get us involved, look out for us. Who is the district over there on the south side and the east side? I haven't seen anything with them, so please, I'm just begging you to get more involved with the community.
All right, Ms. Juarez, thank you. Next, Jennifer Langford, topic charter/M&O funds. Ms. Langford, welcome.
Good evening, School Board, Mr. Riddick. As many of you know, I don't like doing this. I hate public speaking, but I feel like it's important that we stand here and give our points of view and give our thoughts on the upcoming bond. I appreciate the community members that were involved with putting together the bond. I appreciate the members of the PAC and what they are trying to do. I believe that they are good people. Many of them are good friends of mine and people that I love and consider very good friends. And I wanted to be on board. Like, I wanted to get out there and be on board and support the bond. But the more I looked into it, the more research I did, the more questions and concerns I had. And it was given to us so quickly that there wasn't a lot of time to get a lot of details, and there was definitely not any time to give input on what would be done with the schools. I'm not a member of a PAC. I want to start by saying that. I know that there are some anti-PACs out there, but I am not a member of a PAC. I'm just a concerned parent. I'm very involved in our community. I'm involved in MISD. I love our teachers and our staff and our administrators, and I want the best for them as well. A few of the concerns that I've had as I've started looking into the bond is first the privatization or charter in-district charters that we're bringing into MISD. At this time, we have 5 in-district charters: Goddard, Carver, Milam, Bunch, and Young Women's Leadership Academy. The concern that I have with charters is that we are taking public taxpayers' funds and turning it over to a private company to run our public schools. They are appointed boards that are no longer elected by us, the citizens in the community, and they really no longer answer to us. That concerns me. They have control of their budgets, they have control of their curriculum, they have control of their hiring, and the only thing that they have to answer to MISD for is if they are meeting criteria for academics. That concerns me. Second, I'm concerned about the use of our maintenance and operation funds. I've seen more and more people that are for this bond pushing old buildings, things needing to be repaired at elementaries, at junior highs, at high schools. Maybe part of the problem is that we didn't maintain it in the first place. We just used $9.5 million to buy a golf course. Could that have been used to fix some of the ceilings that I'm seeing opened on the video that's shown on MISD's website for the bond? Could that have been used to fix some of the overflowing toilets that I hear about at Lee High School and Midland High School? I think that would have been a better use of our money. I don't know why we would have bought land for a bond that we don't even know if it's going to pass. Personal opinion, but I think that money could have been used better, especially if we have schools that are having those kind of issues. I also have an issue with the enrollment numbers that y'all are giving, but I know that my time's up, so I will cut off there. But I do want to say that I appreciate those that brought forth the bond, and if, and hopefully when, this bond fails, will be the first in line to get together with those people and come to the table and start with what they have and build something that's more transparent with more details for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Langford. Next, Jennifer Carpenter. Topic, teacher retention and culture. Ms. Carpenter, welcome.
Thank you, President Davis. Good evening, Superintendent Riddick and board members. For those that don't know me, my name is Jennifer Carpenter. I'm a parent that has been attempting to collect feedback from our teachers through anonymous surveys. I just collect responses from my 4th survey, and I've chosen to do this to give teachers an anonymous outlet to voice concerns, constructive criticism, and to let us know what is being done right. When it comes to leadership and making positive changes, we cannot fix it if we do not know what is wrong. We need to learn where we are having success so that we can implement what works in the places where we struggle. So far, I've received about 50 fewer responses to this survey than I did on my last. I intended to close it before this meeting, but one person's feedback from the survey recommended that I keep it open. After receiving employee emails from my open records request, I tried sending it out a different way, and I had teachers telling me that my email was being sent to their spam folder. Growing pains with this journey, I suppose. However, there was some great feedback that I'd like to share with you. Overall, the campus numbers are higher than they were at the end of last year. This tells me that our teachers are starting off well. However, there seems to be a disconnect and lower ratings between teachers on their campuses and central office. The top 3 concerns for MISD were the same as the end of the year: discipline of students, support from higher levels, and respect level, each with about 40%. Facilities was added onto this survey, and it was at about 30% of the respondents. These teachers feel very strongly on those top concerns as they are consistent with the results of my other surveys. MISD top 3 places to excel were also the same as my last survey: salary, benefits, and training and development. Campus safety came in 4th. Again, those are thanks to you as a board for seeing those things come to fruition. Something interesting about this survey is that half of the respondents don't fill out district surveys, or they do them, but they don't fill them out honestly. This tells me that they want to speak about things, share ideas, have someone who listens to them. They need a sounding board. I presented the idea of a culture board and a committee made of community members to help with this, but nothing has come of it. Tommy Bishop has been so helpful and supportive of the comment boxes on each campus, and he told me that they were to be put out more effectively this year. As far as I know, after speaking with him last week, there is no timeline for this. According to the teachers and staff that responded, we as a community need to do better and to be present. Show up and be supportive at school events. We need to communicate with our teachers more frequently and give some affirmation and appreciation. We all know we like to hear when we're doing something well. It does start at home, and it's important that we as parents and the community do our part. Volunteer, join the PTA, donate, and communicate. They need to feel our support just as much as they need to feel the district's support. This was shared from one teacher, and I believe it says it all. I think we need to always remember that the teachers currently teaching are the leaders of the ISD community and that their voices matter. We need to listen to them and to take into consideration what they have to say and make plans to accommodate them in the classrooms and outside the classrooms. Office personnel and admin have jobs to do, yes, but the teachers are there in the classrooms are the ones with the task at hand if the numbers aren't reflecting improvement. We need to start there. What is needed to improve on the academic failure ISD isn't currently in? Who better than the warriors who know what we need to win this war? Why are we not listening to those who are on our forefront? Why are we not utilizing the most valuable tools that we have for free? I have come to you repeatedly, and there have been multiple occasions where I didn't even get a response. I have met with a few board members, leaders from central office, and reached out the best that I can. When we have parents offering to help and step up, offering time and assistance, why are we not being receptive? We cannot continue to ignore the areas where we are struggling if we continue to enable discouragement and avoidance of the concerns our teachers have, we will continue to stay stagnant in the culture game. In closing, 50% of teachers and 70% of administrators of central office are in support of this bond coming. We should have more than half of teachers on the same page when it comes to topics such as this, especially since they are the ones in the classrooms. They are the front line that we need to know what their priorities are, and if we want to fix our academic results. Please let's work together and help our teachers. This means every member on this board and every member of this community. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Carpenter, thank you. Next, Kristen Vasquez, topic maintenance. Ms. Vasquez, welcome.
Good evening. I have spoken to you guys numerous times about the maintenance concerns that I have at the campuses around town, most particularly the campus that my children attended last year. It's actually been a year to the date almost that I first spoke to you about how our cafeteria workers have to melt ice every single day to make acceptable drinking water. And that's still happening. I told you about the air conditionings being faulty and they're unable to regulate temperatures in classrooms, still happening. I told you about the ancient carpet at our campus, and there's no plans moving forward this year to replace that flooring. And I told you about the smell. I get text messages and phone calls every week from parents and teachers at that campus that this is still an issue. And yet not one dime of the bond is going towards fixing any of the maintenance issues at any of these elementary schools. But we spend $9 million from our maintenance and operations fund on a golf course. And we're also replacing all of the turf at all the junior high campuses. I understand the concept of putting in turf. I understand that it's more sustainable, and I understand that it's more cost effective, and it's big up front, but we're going to save money in the long run. But why are we not using that same philosophy when it comes to flooring in the elementary schools? Why are we rolling out this cheap industrial carpet that the kids get sick on and have accidents on instead of putting in vinyl flooring that can be cleaned faster with less people needing to clean them, which you guys are short on janitors, let's be real, and you can actually properly disinfect when these kids have accidents. You know, and we're so big on pushing for pre-K in these elementary schools. Do you guys know that pre-K takes a nap every day? Do you know where they take a nap? On the floor. They roll out a mat on this carpet and take a nap on the floor. Like, that's not okay. Until there can be some type of plan moving forward, fixing these issues that you guys have all known about for over a year now, I will vote no for this bond. It's not okay. We need to fix this. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Vasquez, well, thank you very much. Our last speaker, Christine Foreman, topic Community Oversight Committee. Ms. Foreman, welcome. This is an agenda item, so you...
I think I filled the form out wrong. I just wanted to say, as an active member of the community and a volunteer in public schools, I want to express my appreciation to the Facilities Committee for their foresight to ask for a Community Oversight Committee to oversee bond funds if the bond passes. And I want to recognize the responsibility of the board to place that on the agenda for this evening. I think it speaks volumes to the community who is looking for ways that they can be involved and ways that they can learn to trust the district and the board, and I appreciate you putting that on the agenda before the bond is passing. I'm hopeful that those that want to be involved will reach out to their board representatives and be a constructive part of the process. The work to provide quality seats that are updated with safety and technology and adequate for our teachers to teach and our students to learn. So thank you for making that an agenda item tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to it.
All right, Ms. Foreman, thank you. That's agenda item 6D. All right, that concludes our public forum. We will now address our consent agenda. 4A, our board meeting minutes on page 10 of the meeting packet. 4B, district improvement plan, campus improvement plans, beginning on page 15. 4C, monthly financials, beginning on page 100. 4D, monthly expenditures, beginning on page 112. 4E, monthly investment report, beginning on page 126. 4F, budget amendment, page 133. 4G, personnel appointments, page 136. 4H, amended Senate Bill 1882 performance contracts, page 141. 4I, request for proposals, number 19-08, Midland ISD School Quality Review, page 272. And finally, 4J, City of Midland right-of-way dedication, page 275. Board members, do any of those consent agenda items need to be pulled for any reason? All right, here, go ahead. 4F is pulled. Any others? All right, then items on the consent agenda, 4A, B, C, D, E, G, H, I, J will be deemed approved by consent. We'll now take up consent agenda item 4F, budget amendment. Mr. Trischetti?
Hi, Mr. Trischetti. It was a mix of adjustments from state revenue and a Robin Hood adjustment, yes, or a recapture, based on our certified tax roll that we received from the Midland Central Appraisal District, and then also estimated first 6 weeks attendance numbers. Yes. All right, thank you.
All right, motion by Mr. Trischetti, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any further questions or discussion on the budget amendment? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, before we address district reports, I'd like to exercise some discretion and move up an action item concerning the school district's audit report, our annual financial audit report. Information begins on page 317, plus we also have the hard copies that have been delivered to us this evening in addition to the electronic copies. Ms. Moss, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Davis and board members. In the spring of 2019, the board approved the engagement of Eide Bailey, an external audit firm, to audit the district's financial statements. They began their work in June and just recently wrapped up that audit. That report was reviewed by Mr. Riddick and administration a couple of weeks ago, and then just last week, he met with the Finance Committee of the board to review that as well. I'd like to take one opportunity to commend a couple of my staff members for their work during this audit report. Mrs. Carla Martin, if you'll stand, and Mr. Arturo Valenzuela I'd like to just commend them on what they did in the audit process for this year. I'd also like to commend Eide Bailey and what they did in getting that audit done in October. Typically, we do the audit in November, and we challenged them to try to get that report presented to the board in October, and they rose to the occasion and are presenting that information to you tonight. So I'd like to introduce Mr. Jeremy Stevens to present the financial statements to the board.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, is it?
Mr. Stevens, yes.
Stevens, welcome.
Yes. Thank you very much, members of the board, Superintendent Riddick. Yes, I am Jeremy Stevens with Eide Bailey, and our firm has performed the audit of the financial statements of the district for the year ended June 30th of 19. I left a copy of the audited financial statements in front of you. Also have a brief presentation to go over some of the financial highlights. Before I get into it, though, I do just want to say that I do think the audit went well this year. We did not recommend any audit entries as a result of the audit procedures. Additionally, we're not reporting any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control. So overall, it was a good, clean audit.
Good, thank you.
Having a little difficulty. Sorry. technology and I usually don't get along, so.
In your report, are you going to display the pages you want us to see, or are you going to reference them in your?
I'll reference them as I speak.
Okay, all right.
And you can follow along in the bound copy or up on the screen.
All right, thank you.
So to begin with, our auditor's report starts on page number 2, goes on over to page number 4. I've summarized the highlights up on the slide. First of all, it does indicate that management is responsible for the preparation and the fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Additionally, it indicates that management is responsible for the design and implementation of internal controls. It then goes on to describe our responsibility as auditor. As auditor, our responsibility is to express an opinion as to whether these financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Additionally, it describes our approach to internal controls, which is that we gain an understanding of the district's internal controls to design our audit procedures. However, we do not test those internal controls to an extent that allows us to express an opinion on them. So we're not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. And lastly is our opinion, which is found at the top of page number 3. If you would read that, it states that, in our opinion, these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the district. So this is what is known as an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that a firm can provide that a set of financial statements is presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Moving on to some of the basic financial statements themselves, starting on page number 17 with the statement of net position. Now, this particular statement provides a snapshot of all assets and liabilities of the district as of June 30th of 19. On my slide, I presented a very high-level summarized presentation of that statement, and I've added a column for June 30, 18 for comparative purposes. You'll see at June 30th of 19, total assets were about $533 million. Last year, they were about $451 million. So total assets have increased about $80 million year over year. Largely, that increase in assets is in your cash and investments. Cash and investments are up about $50 million year over year. And then deferred outflows of resources are the remainder of the increase. That's up about $28 million year over year. Total liabilities at year-end is about $472 million. Last year is about $429 million. So total liabilities did increase about $40 million year over year. Largely, that increase in total liabilities is in your net pension and your net other post-employment benefit liabilities. Those two line items together increased about $40 million year over year. So if you add it up, your total assets less your liabilities, you get your total net position. That's about $61 million at year end. Last year is about $23 million. So that is an increase over last year of about $38 million. Now, the second statement that I will mention is the balance sheet of governmental funds. That is on page number 19. And again, this particular statement provides a snapshot of assets and liabilities as of June 30th. This particular statement, however, is on what is known as the modified accrual basis of accounting. So it's different in the statement of net position in that it does not include any capital assets, any long-term assets. Additionally, there is no long-term obligations on there. There's no debt obligations, as well as net pension or net OPEB liabilities. Those are all excluded. This particular statement focuses on the district's current obligations and its resources to meet those current obligations. You'll see at June 30th of 19, total assets were about $183 million. The bulk of those assets is in your cash and investments. It's at about $157 million at year end. Last year, those cash and investments was about $110 million. So you see that's where the bulk of the increase is in your cash and investments. As far as liabilities, total liabilities at year end this year is about $52.5 million. Last year is about $30 million. So total liabilities did increase year over year. The bulk of that increase is in your other liabilities category. Included in that is your final payment that is due to TEA for your Chapter 41 recapture. It did increase year over year. That's where the majority of the increase is included, is in that Chapter 41 recapture payment. So if you take your assets less your liabilities at year end, you get a fund balance of about $130 million. Last year, it was about $95 million. So there was that increase in total fund balance year over year of about $35 million. On this particular slide, I've shown that fund balance broken out by various categories. You'll see that the bulk of the increase is in the amounts that are committed for construction. Those are up to about $12 million this year. And then the remainder of the increase is in your unassigned fund balance. Unassigned fund balance is up to about $100 million this year. One measure that you can use to gauge the health of your unassigned fund balance is to compare it to your average monthly expenditures in your general fund. I did that calculation. It came out to be a little over 4 months reserve in the unassigned fund balance. Generally, TEA recommends about a minimum reserve of about 3 months. So you're a little bit above that, but well in line with it. All right, the last statement that I'll go over some numbers on is the statement of revenues and expenditures, which is on page number 21. Again, I've summarized it up on the slide with a comparative column from last fiscal year. As you're looking at revenues and expenses, do keep in mind that if you were to compare this to prior year, the prior year financial statements is what was known as the stub period because the district changed its fiscal year end from an August 31st year end to a June 30th year end. So the previous year's financial statements included 10 months of activities on the income statement. The year into June 30th of 19 includes a full 12 months of activity. So that does account for some of the increases there. Revenues for this fiscal year on the 12-month period is about $343 million. You'll note that all three categories, local, state, and federal program revenues have increased year over year. The majority of the increases in your local revenues, it's up to about $290 million this year. Largely that is growth in property tax revenue. As for expenditures, your total expenditures this year is about $305 million. Last year is about $240. However, do you remember that prior financial statements includes 10 months of activity? This one includes 12 months. So that additional 2 months accounts for some of the growth in the expenditures. The other item that's driving up your expenditure category is your Chapter 41 recapture payment. That one did increase year over year about $27 million. And that is included in the intergovernmental line item. You'll see it's up to about $67 million this year. Last year was about $40 million. And that is everything for the basic financial statements. In the back, there are two other reports that I'll briefly touch on. The first is on page number 79. And that is our report on internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance. Again, this report reiterates that we are not expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls. However, if we identified and reported any material weaknesses in internal controls or significant deficiencies, those would be reported here. Additionally, if we identified any instances of non-compliance, those would be reported here. Again, happy to report that there were no such items identified. And lastly is our report on compliance for the major federal program. That's on page number 81. As a part of our audit, we do select one of your federal programs, termed a major program. We look at the administration of that program to make an opinion as to whether the district complied with the compliance requirements of that major program. The program tested this year was Title I, Part A. And if you look at the opinion paragraphs is at the bottom of page 81, it states that in our opinion, the district did comply in all material respects with the requirements of that program. So again, this is a clean opinion on compliance for the Title I Part A program.
Financial audit?
I'm going to ask that I look to the annual audit approved annually.
Ms. Moss, do you have any correction in the motion?
No correction, but I do want to make one clarifying thing for the board on the fund balance. We've talked about that a lot, and we're going to talk about fund balance again in our budget workshop coming up next month. But Mr. Stevens identified where TEA would like for us to be and where we are. TEA normally says 3 months. We're at 4 months based on last year's expenditure amount. Right now, our expenditure budget is in excess of $400 million, so that puts us right in line with where we need to be. Just wanted to clarify that.
We were also anticipating our Robin Hood payment to increase. It is now budgeted to more than double, and so we were wary of that too last budget cycle. Is that
yes, sir.
All right, so motion by Mr. Truschetti, second by Mr. Kennedy to accept the audit. Any further questions or discussion?
I just want to say, I think Ms. Moss already said, Mr. Stevens, we appreciate the time and the effort y'all put into getting this done early. I think this is kind of a record for us to getting our financial statements presented ahead of what the state expected. But I also wanted to take the time to, Ms. Moss drew attention to her team, which they've done a great job, but Ms. Moss has also done a fabulous job. We did have a little discussion today, because I needed to ask a couple of questions about fund balance as it related to Chapter 49 payments. And so what we all thought in House Bill 3 was this big rollout of how our Chapter 49 or then Chapter 41 payment was going to decline. And really it went from about 65 million roughly up to 130, almost 133 million. So it really jumped up. What we see, the only thing that's saving us in that calculation is that they did schedule a hold harmless provision for us for 2 years. To give some of that money back that helped us to get back some of our, where we would have been really in a bind. But at the end of the day, our net difference is still about $4 million. And it's something that as a school board, we'll have to consider going forward in the next year or two how we spend dollars, because we don't know that this hold harmless is going to be there for us forever. It's only guaranteed at this point for 2 years, and so it'll be something that we have to take into account at that point. But again, I appreciate you, Mr. Stevens and Ms. Moss, and the financial group and what y'all have done for MISD, because once again, you've brought a spectacular product to us, and we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. All right, any further comments or questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, I'm going to exercise some more discretion and move up action item 6D, which is appoint a 2009 Bond Community Oversight Committee. I'll be the presenter on this, I guess. As the board will recall, on our July board meeting, when the Citizens Facility Committee presented their bond recommendation package to this board for its consideration, they also recommended that we consider establishing a community oversight committee, possibly including members of the current facilities committee, to stay in touch with project implementation and provide scheduled reports to the community at large of progress and deviations from the plan. The purpose of putting this on the agenda is to seek a board decision as to whether we're going to have a Community Oversight Committee in the event that the bond does pass on November 5th. A vote in favor of this, doing so tonight, would mean that we would then have the opportunity to take community input as to who the members of that committee might be, what their criteria and qualifications might be, and we could receive that input as we've been receiving input on just about everything else we get input on, and that is through our email, through phone calls, through meetings, through personal conversations. If this were to pass, then part of the motion is to ask Mr. Riggin to come up with some policies and procedures on how this committee were to function and put some meat on the bones, if you will. But tonight we're asking, we're on the item to approve that there will be one, to allow the board, if the motion passes, to allow community input on who should be on that committee and criteria, qualifications, and so forth. Motion by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Fuller. Any further discussion?
Mr. Davis, I just would add that I think it's clear that given the outpouring of community input since we've called the bond, that something like this is certainly necessary when the bond passes, that there are still countless individuals in this community that care about public education and want their voice heard. And while we appreciate the work of the Facilities Committee and all that they did, and some of those may continue to serve, that there's still going to be opportunities for other members of the community to stay engaged as we move forward. So.
All right. Go ahead.
I just want to make the comment that, you know, serving in the community, you know, and in any community, I guess, in any capacity, in the public eye, that we love the community input, you know, and all that, and then, you know, and just to understand that the public needs to understand that in the sense that if we build a committee, which I'm for, that hopefully there's an agreement there, because you know, we're a large town, and there's a lot of students, there's a lot of campuses, and when you build a committee, whether it's in a private company, public entity, you know, there's always somebody that, you know, we can't come in consensus with sometimes. But we're trying to do our best to bring the full picture and transparency to everyone. So I just want people to understand that that's, you know, it's a hard process when we bring this forward. And I know it can be done, but I think the community be very happy once the bond passes and we go to working on selecting people or building that properly. So, that's it.
All right, I'm certainly in favor of this motion. I put it on the agenda, and I'm going to vote for it, but I would be remiss if I didn't note that thanks to the leadership of Mr. Riggin, following our 2012 bond issue, which passed, it was delivered on time and under budget, without the benefit of a Citizens Oversight Committee. So please don't take this vote in favor of this to be any reflection on the great work that you did on our last bond. But I think this is we can only benefit from having this committee to oversee this bond, and if in fact it passes. So, any other discussion, comments, questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, we'll return back to our regularly scheduled agenda. Start with our committee reports, district reports. 5A is the trustee continuing education report on page 282 of our meeting packet. I'm sorry, what? All right, we're going back to the regular. All right, there are been some, I guess, new regulations that are applicable to this announcement, so I have to read from a script to follow the script so that I can follow with those new regulations. Under State Board of Education rule, completing required continuing education each year of service is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member. As board president, I'm required to announce the name of each member who, as of that member's anniversary of election or appointment to the board, has either completed the required continuing education, has exceeded the required continuing education, or is deficient in meeting the required continuing education. There are 4 tiers or categories of board member continuing education. Tier 1 is local district orientation, basic legal orientation, and legal update training. Tier 2 is team building training with all board members and the superintendent. Tier 3 is annual continuing education, and Tier 4 is evaluating and improving student outcomes. To the extent applicable to board members under the legal requirements for the 4 tiers, I will announce the completion or deficiency as to required training. For members who still have time remaining to complete, I will announce those board members who have scheduled timely training and those who have not yet scheduled the training. And at the conclusion of this announcement, I will announce any board members training in excess of the continuing education requirements. I will go off script briefly to tell you that all school board members have met the required training, but I must specifically tell you the following. Back on script. The following first-year board member has completed the Tier 1 local district orientation session. John Trischetti. The following first-year board member has also completed the Tier 1 basic orientation training regarding the Texas Education Code and relevant legal obligations. John Trischetti. Tier 2 team building training. The following board members have completed the required team building training. I must announce each one of them by name for the record. Tommy Bishop, Rick Davis, James Fuller, John Kennedy, Robert Marquez, Brian Murray, and John Trischetti. Tier 3 annual continuing education. The following board members have completed the Tier 3 annual continuing education requirements. Tommy Bishop, Rick Davis, James Fuller, John Kennedy, Robert Marquez, Brian Murray, and John Trischetti. Tier 4, evaluating and improving student outcomes training. The following board members have completed the required training on evaluating and improving student outcomes. Tommy Bishop, Rick Davis, James Fuller, John Kennedy, Robert Marquez, Brian Murray, and John Trischetti. Exceeding required continuing education. Board member Tommy Bishop exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 25 additional hours. Board member Rick Davis exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 40.25 hours. Board member James Fuller exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 18.5 hours. Board member John Kennedy exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 14.5 hours. Board member Robert Marquez exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 14.75 hours. Board member Brian Murray exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 24.75 hours. And board member John Trischetti exceeded the required amount of required continuing education training by 19 hours. And that completes my report on the continuing education legal requirements of the board members. Thank you. All right, next district report, 5B, board goals. Information on page 283 of the board packet. Goal progress measure 1.1. Ms. Rivera, welcome.
Good evening, Board President Davis, trustee members, Mr. Riddick. I appreciate the opportunity to present to y'all tonight on Goal Progress Measure 1.1. This is measuring our K through 2 students reading honor above grade level using iStation. I deliberately use that term appreciate because I do appreciate the opportunity to not only present information to the board, but we also have some new members, I think, in our public this evening, and I want to acknowledge them and thank them for attending. I am Jill Rivera. I work on the teaching and learning team. I'm the Executive Director of Professional Development, so we welcome all of our new members in the auditorium tonight. So moving on to where we are in Goal Progress 1.1, end of the year, we're looking to be at 85% by the end of this school year. If you look at that orange line trajectory, that's our targets. Our blue line is where we are actually performing. If you notice, this year we're reporting at 51% for beginning of year. I like just to keep in mind that 51%, those tests actually begin about the 7th or 8th day of school. So when we're talking about kinder, first and second graders going into iStation, this 51% seems very low, but it also is very normal. So just to give you some context around this, we started at about 54% at the beginning of year last year, but just with our kindergartners, kindergartners between beginning and end of year testing, our kindergartners actually went up 24 percentage points, and we finished the year for K2 at 71%. So while 51% is absolutely not where we want to be, it's a logical place to be at this point. And the way we look at it in teaching and learning is great opportunity to continue to build kids and have them ready for the next grade level. So this is kind of where we end up. If you look at the cohort of students, each cohort did increase from kindergartners last year to first graders this year. So we're excited about that progress and that movement. So just to kind of put where we are out in front of everyone, you always have to have a starting point to know where we need to grow. So this is where we are in September. I'm also proud to say that in October, we're already at 55%. So we're already seeing that upward trajectory of where we need to be by end of year. Questions on 1.1?
Mr. Rear, let me ask a question, because I printed out this graph today, and the thing that stuck out to me was starting here at 51%, mainly because we've already had first graders in the system, we've had second graders in the system, so we would expect those students to have moved up. In our most recent convention that we attended, they talked about some funding possibilities for summer workshops. And is this something that the district is addressing for us to catch up for that summer lull where we're seeing some of these things drop?
I'm excited that you actually brought that up. House Bill 3 has so many pieces that are going to impact us and impact us positively. One of the pieces of House Bill 3 is really looking at that extended kind of school year, receiving potentially additional funding to educate more kids for more days. So we're in the preliminary stages of discussing all of the issues around House Bill 3. That's definitely one of them. A second piece that's coming in House Bill 3 are required reading academies, which are teaching our teachers the science of teaching reading. And those will be required academies for our K2, actually our K3 teachers going into next year. We were fortunate in this year to get in on a TEA grant where we have about 75 or 80 teachers already going through a program, a literacy grant program, to learn this science of teaching reading. So we know that we'll get a bump there for our teachers that are going through there. They're represented by about 9 campuses. But knowing going into even the week after school is out this year, we already have a 3-day academy scheduled. The first week of June, another 3-day academy scheduled so that we can go ahead and start getting our K3 teachers trained in the science of teaching reading. And we know that this will bump. One thing that's really important, and the way that we measure this, I know, is through a program called iStation. There is no better instructor of reading than the teacher in front of kids. So I don't ever want to misrepresent in the fact that iStation is teaching kids to read. What iStation is doing is helping us gather a measure of what Tier 1 instruction is looking like in reading. And then what this does on each of these sub-tests that this computer program tells us is how, as a teacher, I can go in and then intervene with the student, whether it's in phonics, whether it's in vocabulary. All of those things lead to better comprehension. So we use these programs as progress measures and really to tell how we need to intervene and differentiate for students. It will never replace good Tier 1 instruction that is only delivered by teachers. So we appreciate teachers daily, appreciate the support provided to them, and want to continue to train and develop and build capacity in our teachers delivering this really critical instruction, especially in K2 reading.
One other thing I wanted to point out, there was actually 2, but I've turned 50 and I've already forgot the second one. But on this graph, while our goal was 77% and we reached 71%, that really looks like 3 years of growth since we started tracking this, because we started in the fall of 2016. From 71% to 57%, that's a 25% growth. So we didn't meet our goal because we stretched our goal and we're pushing ourselves and we want to be better, and we're going to continue to do that. But there's something to be said too that over 3 years we grew 25%. So we appreciate the work that's going on, and as you say, we appreciate the fact that there's no better way to impact these children rather than having the teachers in front of them with appropriate class sizes and how we go about teaching these kids. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have two comments. One similar to Mr. Murray's comment. It is encouraging to see that, starting with a baseline of 57% in the fall of 16, that at the end of this last school year, we improved 24 percentage points. That's great. That's the kind of improvement we want to see going forward. The second comment, however, is worrisome because in September of 2017, we were at 49 and improved to 68, an improvement of 19%. And in September of 18, we were at 54 and improved 17% to 71. And here and that 49 to 54 jump from one September to the next, from 17 to 18, was significant and very encouraging. And now, however, we're 3 percentage points below a year ago. And if we average the last 2 years' improvement, 17 and 19, 18, that would put us at 69. So I appreciate this is an interim report. It's not a year-end report. It doesn't reflect all the good work that's going on now, and that hopefully will go through the end of the year. But if we only average 18 percentage point improvement, then the end of this school year, we'll only be at 69, which would be a drop from the 71. Be up from 57, but still a drop from 71. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, and that we will see a number in excess of 71%, hopefully something in excess of 77%, I hope.
Yes, sir. We do acknowledge that. Our work is never complete. We don't allow Chicken Little to live in our house, so we are constantly preparing and working daily to make sure that we do exceed 71% where we left last year. And as our goals state, we're shooting for 85.
And I want to say that, to the public that might not be in tune into that. The Lone Star governance. So this has been going on for now for 3 years, and so prior to this, and somebody can correct me, but prior to this, MISD didn't have a quarterly progress tracking measure that was developed, right? I mean, we did year-end results, right?
That is true. We've not reported data like this, in this manner, this explicitly, this often, until we went through Lone Star governance. There was data reported to the board. It was not in this manner, this explicitly, and this regularly, I would say.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is that there's been a lot of progress made, and so I just want to be on the champion side and say, hey, listen, 3 years ago when we came up with these measures, back then, in my own mind, I questioned how can that be reached? We're getting there, and it's bringing a lot of knowledge to a lot of people in the district. So I'm very appreciative of that. Everybody's striving to continue to move forward.
Thank you. Progress made, still work to do.
The other thing I wanted to point out a while ago, I'm slow,
you remembered,
was that the possibility under House Bill 3 also that you mentioned was funding for the pre-K seats, not directly to that, but through sources in that House Bill 3, we will be able to add those seats. So that's another thing that getting those available seats will add toward this goal and getting those kids in, because the students, the 800 students approximately that are in our care now perform better than the students that come in cold, not having attended our pre-K group. So that's another positive to the House Bill 3.
I agree. The more kids that we can come in kinder ready, the better prepared they will be, and for them to flourish even faster.
Any other comments or questions? All right, Ms. Rivera, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, 5C, academic update, bilingual and English as a second language program evaluation report. Information begins on page 288 of the meeting packet. Samaya, welcome.
Good evening, President Davis, board members, Superintendent Riddick. Tonight I present to you our bilingual and ESL program evaluation for the year 2018-2019. First off, here's a summary of STAR performance for current English learners, as well as English learners who have exited our program in the last 4 years. This is how the state evaluates, is one of the groups that the state evaluates. And as you can see, aside from math, we saw increases in performance across the board. Some slight increases, some larger, but we are in an upward trend. The next slide shows English learners only. Again, it's our STAR performance. These students tend to perform at a little bit lower level sometimes because this includes newcomer students who are new to our country and still learning the language. However, we also saw increases across the board. In terms of our 4-year graduation and dropout rates, we saw an almost 5% increase in graduation, in the 4-year graduation rate of English learners. And we also saw a decrease of almost 3% in dropout rates. I don't know about you, I know our goal is 90%, but for English learners, 5 percentage points is quite an increase. It took a lot of work on our part, and we, once again, are following up closely, and next year you will see even larger gains. In 2018-2019, 51% of Midland ISD English learners in the bilingual and ESL programs were rated as advanced or advanced high in TELPA's composite ratings. In 18-19, 30% of all Midland ISD English learners in bilingual and ESL programs progressed at least one proficiency level in the TELPA's composite rating, which meets the state target for closing the gaps domain. In terms of our enrollment, last year at the elementary level, we ended with approximately 2,450 students. We are now at 2,600, which is 150 students more than we had last year. At the secondary level, we ended the year at approximately 956 students, and at this time we are at 1,052. We are continuing to enroll students just about every day. My department provided a wide range of professional development opportunities for teachers, ranging from shelter instruction to assessment and other compliance requirements. Participants included elementary and secondary teachers, ESL, general education, bilingual teachers, as well as parents and community members. So last year, we had to apply to the Texas Education Agency for 31 bilingual exceptions on behalf of 31 teachers, and 3 ESL waivers also on behalf of our teachers because we did not have enough certified teachers. And listed, you have all the members of my team. Do you all have any questions?
What's the progress outlook for 2019, 2020, as far as are we at 31 teachers?
Yes, we do. You will see progress. We are extremely targeted. We are still needing certified bilingual teachers. We are still needing certified ESL teachers. But we have really increased our efforts in the amount of training that our substitute teachers who are long-term are receiving. Additionally, we have moved from what we used to call the transitional late exit program to a dual language model, which we're implementing in pre-KK and first, and that really is to increase the amount of language proficiency that our kids will gain as they move up through the grade levels. Any other questions?
Is part of the bilingual, if you got multiple languages and not able to find people that are proficient in a certain language from conversion from whatever language into English?
Can you rephrase your question? I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is that you have somebody that speaks German and is transitioning into English, how easy is it?
Transition from one language to the other can be difficult. I can tell you that when you teach the languages simultaneously, it happens quicker at younger ages. Also, it just depends on the native instruction that these students have received or how much instruction they come to us with. At this moment, we actually, our population is kind of changing a little bit. We used to receive a lot of students from Mexico. Right now, we are receiving students mainly from Venezuela, Colombia, Honduras. So it just depends. Some of them come educated at a very high level, while others do not. Any other questions?
So just add to that. So as an example, I just spoke recently with a parent who has a Vietnamese student, kinder, 5 years old. And so that student was fluent in Vietnamese and not in English at all. So there's a transition that has to happen for that student coming in order to pick up the English language. So after 9 weeks now, that student is now at home teaching her mom English words as we made this transition forward. So although the barrier that we do have is Vietnamese, German, French, Farsi, whatever that language might be, there are tools that we can provide for teachers for translation to help get through basics for understanding for a student, so we can help that student be able to adapt to lunch and restroom and those things that that student might need. But the students also pick up at a high rate where the language is, and it's all done, a lot of it, through immersion. So the idea that they're getting it at school in full immersion has to be the same idea that when they go home, that there's an immersion that occurs there also. So TV and radio and as much language as possible is done in English, so that you're not getting just English at school and then you revert back to your native language when you're back home. That's the challenge that we have to work with parents on. So influencing parents to get into English as a second language class, adult class, having students practice with their parents when they go home, giving them the tools and the equipment and the information to transition is helping that environment where Spanish may have been the primary, but we're getting kids now from all over the world where 42 languages are now spoken in Midland, how to address those needs.
So that number looks high, but there's some complexity to it. That's what I was trying to get to earlier.
There is complexity. Like I said, as young as the kids are, and as much training as we are providing to our teachers in a strategic way, we can get there quickly. It is imperative that we start as early as we can with the immersion.
Well, and the reason I'm trying to get to that is because I've been approached and asked, in the public realm, it's like, why are you short, why would you be so high, for example, this number right here. So, learn the complexity of why we don't have this particular person that speaks this particular dialect, whatever, we end up having to ask for an exception is what I'm getting at against.
All right.
It's a hard task to just get there, from 1 minute to the next when this person shows up and needs to be educated, and that's what we're trying to do, but it does bring complexity to the district.
Yes. Any other questions?
Ms. Mayor, I don't have a question, but I just want to say I appreciate the fact that you've moved all these trends up year over year, almost everything except math. You've done a great job in. Do you attribute that to the specific training you're getting your teachers, or What's the step that's made this possible?
Truthfully, last year, I've been a principal at IR campuses for multiple years. I do look at data heavily. So we did an in-depth data study in my department, and really, I call them quick wins. This is something that TEA always talks to us about, look at the areas, and honestly, we targeted graduation rate. Graduation rate, to me, that's so important, such a life-changing event for a student. So we went in very, very full force to monitor our English learners who were not graduating. That's one part. The other part the other concern that we found was that our junior high and high school students, we call them long-term ELs, those students are the ones struggling. So we looked at their data, and I met with principals one-on-one and really raising the awareness of those students, because some of those students are American citizens. They have been with us since pre-K on up, and so we are working very, very, very diligently to get them graduated and ready and prepared for when they leave us. And so I can tell you that graduation strategy worked, because we saw that increase. What we will see next year, since we're behind 1 year, it will be much larger than that. And yes, so we've looked at the areas where we needed to bring up. We are not even close to where we're going to see our program evolve, but we do have to take it one step at a time.
Great.
So data studies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mrs. Maya, thank you, and thank you to your team. We appreciate you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next district report, 5D, staffing update. Mr. Bailey, welcome.
Good evening, President Davis, board members. Thank you. Board members, Superintendent Riddick, included in your packet, I've detailed information about district staffing, and in reviewing the staffing data, it's always as well important to consider the local economy. Our current local economy directly affects available staff that is available to fill positions within our district, and it was just reported last week that Midland continues to be the lowest, carry the lowest unemployment rate in the entire state of Texas. So statewide, the unemployment rate remained at 3.4% for the fourth consecutive month, matching a record low that was set in June of this year. As a district, we continue to face and address the numerous factors that directly impact our ability to attract and retain staff, and it is apparent that the data that we are doing, the right things to improve and move the needle in the right direction in district housing has proven to be successful this year. We, of course, have the highest salary in Region 18, full employee contribution for health care, also providing stellar health care options for our employees, a full employee daycare. Both of our centers are full with employee students and children, an employee clinic, retention bonuses for the first time in MISD history have all continued to contribute to the positive staffing information and data that we see right now. Currently, 100% of MISD classrooms are covered. 97% of MISD classrooms are filled with a permanent teacher that we called long-term subs. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about that in just a second. And 90% of MISD classrooms are filled with a certified teacher or a DOI teacher, which is a certification exempt teacher based upon their credentials. Just to further clarify, of course, that 100% number does include some very creative options that campus administrators have had to initiate this year to make sure all those classes are covered. It does mean that we have to utilize enhancements in some areas as well as larger class sizes. However, there are some data to support that across the district we are definitely addressing that and having to be creative. The additional 7%, we talked about 90% that are filled with certified teachers. There's another 7% that are filled with what some may call long-term subs. They're not fully credentialed or certified. They're non-contract teachers. Of those 120 classrooms that are filled with long-term subs or temporary teachers, 82 of those teachers have a bachelor's degree. 20 of those teachers are certified. 7 of them are retired, and 13 could be out of state or they're out-of-country certified teachers, and they have other credentials in that way. So that gives you some background as to who those 120 or that 7% really are. Moving on into our resignation reasons, since the beginning of this contract year, we can be able to provide some details on the 18 that have of contract certified professional employees that have submitted notices of resignation. 8 of those submitted resignation notices for health reasons, documented health reasons from a professional, a licensed professional. Family obligations, 2 have been administration requested, 3 for job abandonment, 1 coming for sanctions tonight, and then 2 for personal reasons. Finally, the Human Capital Management Department has contracted with Lighthouse Services to provide an anonymous 24/7, 365-day reporting hotline that is yet another layer to help establish a solid organizational culture based on integrity and trust. Lighthouse Hotline Services will help improve risk management and governance while also reinforcing open lines of communication from district leadership to employees in every capacity. Lighthouse Services offers bundle services, efficient implementation, a toll-free number, open exchange, retention, specialized operators that are professionally trained and accustomed to dealing with caller concerns, stress, and frustration, multilingual services in more than 140 languages, as well as a number of reporting options that are available to the district that comes through this 3-step anonymous reporting network that includes 6 reporter engagement options, including web, fax, mail, email, text, and of course the toll-free number. Lighthouse is the best in class in case management, and we are anticipating this option to be able to provide the two-way communication that is vital to an organization of our size. We'll be bringing for your approval more innovative compensation proposals in the upcoming weeks, as well as reports from our third-party administrators, K-12 Insight, which will be in a future board meeting or a board workshop, who will report on findings from exit surveys they conducted on our behalf over the past contract year, completing in September, and they will bring that in an upcoming meeting. That is our staffing report for this month. Any questions?
Mr. Bailey, when we're in Midland ISDs at 97.2, can you give me a frame of reference? Is that up or down from same time last year?
97%.
97%.
It's about, when we've done a better job of accounting for long-term subs this year. It was a little bit difficult because they were our employees, and so we have definitely been able to detail this is a non-MISD employee because of ESS management, and so the title in our system is different than the way we were accounting for them last year.
And then when you talk about the administration being able to hire folks that are qualified but maybe alternative, can you give me a for example? Is that someone that maybe has a degree that makes sense for teaching that field but never went and got a teacher certification, or?
Right, so we have some teachers that are certified in other areas, and as well as we have some teachers that might have a degree in a certain subject area, however, they have not completed certification, or maybe there's something that is preventing them from completing certification. A number of our long-term subs, temporary teachers, are in certification programs but have not reached the point that they can be issued a statement of eligibility from their entity, their certifying entity, so that we can recommend them for the 1-year intern certification. So everyone's in a different point in the process. Some bring out-of-state credentials. However, if their out-of-state credentials are not full or a standard certification, say in Louisiana, then that would not transfer equally here to Texas. So there's several, different issues that we have to take into consideration.
So how's the, I can't remember the name right now, but that service that was going to help us staffing for the 1 day or 2 day or?
We have 2. One would be ESS that does it on the staff element, and then we have the after-school program or before school. Okay, so it would be ESS.
We hired for short-term subs.
ESS, yes. ESS manages our subsystem, and in the report that we submitted, it did show that our weekly and monthly fill rate is increasing. This, in the month of October or September, it was at 74%. Last year, we were about 69%, so that is a 5% increase, as well as, and that's due to their constant recruitment. Also, I included in your report that historically, we've only had about 250 subs available in the pool for day-to-day positions. Recent reports, they have recruited 450 subs. So, of course, they take jobs as that works in their schedule. And with the 2% unemployment rate, though, that's where you would get those subs from. So they're continuing to recruit each and every day. I saw them today at an event. They're recruiting everywhere, trying to bring subs into the district, as well as pizza boxes and anything else that they can do to try to recruit qualified people to come into the district.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right, next, 5E, Facilities Update. Mr. Riggin, welcome.
Good evening, President Davis, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Riddick. I'm James Riggin with the Chief Operations Officer for Midland ISD. It's my pleasure tonight to bring two items to the board and the community. Just an update. The MISD officially closed and received title papers and commitments from on the sale of the Ranchland Hills Golf Club. This property has been moved title to MISD as of the 15th of October. This is important because of the efforts of the need and the efforts of the bond for the additional need for land that we would need for the second new high school. Also, the district board members and bond volunteers have been very busy to help educate and provide information to our community for the projects and the needs that are included in the $569 million bond. This is not a small effort to provide information and educational information to the 160,000 plus members of our community and the voters that are included in our community. I reported last month to the board that of the meetings that had occurred, and today, from last meeting to this meeting, MISD staff, our board members, have made a total of 75 presentations to our community in efforts to help educate our community as to the components of the bond, the need for the bond, and the importance of the capacity that will be provided in this bond. This effort continues with this group of presenters to help bring education and information to the voting public. This will continue up until November the 5th, and the district is willing and able at any time to provide a presentation to any group that invites us to come to their organization. That is my presentation for tonight.
I've been to two of them, and I just want to say they're doing an excellent job at presenting the information for the public. All the information is transparent, so anybody that needs it can review it. And so I just appreciate your efforts in doing that, because it's well put together. So.
Well, believe me, it's not my efforts. It's the efforts of the board, staff, and community volunteers.
All right, thank you, Mr. Regan. Appreciate it. All right, 6F, F, innovation update. I think Ms. Kayla is out of town at a conference.
Correct. It's
Assistant
just a
grade schools, so.
Just a report only, so information is available in the report. And
all right.
if there are questions, I can help you with questions.
Information was on page 314 of our meeting packet. Hearing no questions, we'll return to our remaining discussion action items. 6B, Midland Central Appraisal District Board of Directors Nomination Resolution. Information begins on page 327 of our board packet. This is an action item. Ms. Moss, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Every biennium, the Midland Central Appraisal District asks the board to nominate representatives for their board of directors. Currently, our representatives are Michael Kaufman, Robert Comich, and Kelly Cook. Mr. Jerry Bundick, in speaking with him, has stated that all of our representatives currently still have the desire to remain and serve on that board. There's a resolution that has been prepared for you tonight to complete for those representatives.
How are those representatives decided?
By the board.
We're deciding this evening. They've been serving and they're willing to continue to serve.
They've been serving and they're willing to continue.
We appreciate their service.
I move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Trischetti. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Moss. Next, our Lone Star Governance Board Quarterly Self-Evaluation. Unless I hear any objection, then, or questions, if we go by our past history, if we have at least 4 or more votes on how we should be scored on a particular category of the Lone Star Governance categories, then we use that as our consensus score. So on Vision 1, consensus is 15. Vision 2, consensus is 15. Vision 3, consensus is 10. Vision 4, consensus is 5. Accountability 1, consensus is 4. Accountability 2, 0.5. The consensus is 0.5. Structure, consensus is 4. On
President Davis,
yes. Yes.
Is the consensus about 5?
On structure?
Accountability too.
It's 0.5. 0.5. There are 5 0.5s.
I'm looking at 4, 5. Right here.
0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 5.
Not the next one.
Well, that is what your screen shows, but our screens. There's a hard copy. And 0.5, I will tell you, is the correct. Yeah, I see what you're saying. You are correct. On your screen, for some reason, it shows 4 5s and only 3 0.5s, but on the final version I have, it's. Well, he's looking at his board book 1022. Oh, that is July. All right.
Yeah, I see the July. But you have a handout that's.
Okay.
October's the walk-in, right? It's your walk-in. It's going to be.
Oh, okay.
You're looking at July. Okay.
Okay, that's where I'm.
All right. So we're 0.5 on that one. Now on advocacy, we have a consensus, but I think it's the wrong consensus. Let me tell you why. On advocacy, I think we're a 1, not a 3. Because to reach a 3, you had to, in the last 12 months, you'd have to have a meeting to discuss student progress outcome goals at one of the feeder pattern schools with a low-performing campus. We did that a year ago, but we haven't done it this year yet, and so we can't score ourselves a 3, and so we're still a 1 until we do that. All right, okay, so we're back. Consensus there on 1, and on unity, the consensus is 3. So, I have to do public math, let's see. It's how much? Bless you, thank you. 57.5 is our score for our current quarter for ending September 2019. All right, now talking about next quarter target goals. Vision 1, these are all consensus scores until we get to advocacy. Vision 1, 15, Vision 2, 15, Vision 3, 10, Vision 4, 5, Accountability 1 is 12, Accountability 2 is 5, Structure is 4. We do not have a consensus on advocacy. However, we have 2 9s and 2 10s. And so what I would suggest is that we take, this is something, looking forward, that we take at least, just take the 9, take the benefit of the 2 9s and the 2 10s and score us at least a 9 as our consensus score for what we're shooting for next quarter. Yes? Take that as a no. You don't want a 9? Anyone else want a 9? I want a 9.
I like 9.
All right. Okay. And unity is a 10. Mr. Murray? $84. All right. So, for purposes of our motion on this action item, our current score for the quarter period ending September 30, 2019, 57.5, and our next quarter target is 84. Motion by Mr. Truschetti, second by Mr. Kennedy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right. We've already covered 6D, which is the appointment of the 2019 Bond Community Oversight Committee. We'll turn to our last action item before closed session, and that is the 2019 Bond Project Management Model and Selection of Construction Delivery, which I understand we're going to table this evening and take it back up if the bond passes on November 5th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's a recommendation of the 3-member board facility committee after its meeting that this item be tabled until after the bond election.
No.
Thank you.
No. Okay, it is 7.
I wanted to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
So I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody in the MISD community and friends and so forth. I lost my father here recently, it'll be a month yesterday. Then lost my father-in-law 9 days later. And I just want to say that it's, I live in a fantastic town. I got a lot of love and support. And you need that when you lose someone. So I just want to say a big thank you to all our MISD community especially, and then all our extended friends and family. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marquez. All right, it is now 7:07 p.m. and we will go into closed session in accordance with Government Code Sections 551.071 through .074, 551.076, 551.0821 through .084. Thank you all for coming. It is now 7:59 p.m. and we are emerging from closed session to take up action item arising from closed session, item number 8 on our agenda, 8A specifically, teacher contract abandonment. 1, good cause did not exist for resignation, and 2, complaint and request for sanction to TEA regarding C. Dotson.
President Davis, board members, the Texas Education Code authorizes SBEC to sanction an employee if there is no good cause for contract abandonment. We're presenting for sanctions tonight C. Dotson, who did not present cause, and for contract abandonment and providing a sufficient time for replacement.
I move that we sanction C. Dotson.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous, thank you. Now we need to return to action item 6.C regarding our Lone Star Governance Quarterly Self-Examination. The prior movement was Mr. Murray and the prior seconder was John Truschetti. So our current, or the quarter ending September 30th will remain 57.5 as in the previous motion, but we'll amend the previous motion to change our score from 84 to 85 for our next quarter targets. Okay, motion by Mr. Murray again and second by Mr. Truschetti again. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous, thank you. All right, it is now 8:01 and we are adjourned. Thank y'all.